Pat Cohen here. We're going to tie a fly today called the CarpNado. It's one of my original carp flies. It can be used to imitate small crayfish, leeches, hellgrammites, dragonfly nymphs, damselfly nymphs. It's just in general a real buggy kind of carp attracting fly. We're going to be tying this on a partridge of Redditch size 6 long boilie hook. We're using 210 denier flat wax nylon. We're just going to start that on the eye of the hook, or near the eye of the hook. We're using a set of black large bead chain eyes. These are from Hairline. We're going to attach this to the top of the hook shank. This fly will ride hook point up in the water, which a majority of the time is essential in carp fishing. They do feed on the bottom a lot of the time when we're targeting them. So if the fly is not riding hook point up, you tend to get snagged up a bit. Alright, those are good and secure. I'm going to bring the thread now back to the bend of the hook. We're going to make an orange one. I do this in 4 basic colors. A brown, an orange, an olive, and a black. So we're using right now just a strung marabou plume. I'm going to kind of brush all the excess fibers on the back, just straight back. I'm going to pull those off. And what we're going to do is create a tail by bunching this together. And I'm going to measure it so that it is the same length as the hook shank. We're going to secure that on. We're just going to do 3 wraps. And then I'm going to bring it forward in front of the marabou plume. I'm using brassy copper wire, and this is what's going to create our ribbing on the marabou. So I'm going to tie this in just ahead of the marabou, advance my thread, and I'm just going to put it out of the way. Go back to your marabou plume. Now anything that's not secure on there, I'm just going to pull right off. I'm going to take my marabou plume and I'm going to twist it in my fingers. I'm just going to hold that off to the side for a minute. I'm going to grab a grizzly rubber leg. I'm going to cut it in half. I'm just going to pin this back for the moment. I'm going to take my rubber legs and right in front of this marabou plume, I'm going to fold those legs right over top of the thread, and I'm going to essentially V-tie it so that you get one piece of rubber leg on each side of this marabou. Now that twisted marabou, we're going to take that and we're going to advance this in front of those rubber legs, and we're going to build a body using just the marabou. Okay, now we're going to secure the excess down. Trim that off. Make sure that's good and tight. Now I'm going to take my wire and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to advance this in the opposite direction that we put the marabou on so that it secures it to the hook. Tie off that excess. Now I'm going to be using Peacock Curl as a wing casing, or a shellback, whatever you want to consider it. I'm going to grab a pretty healthy clump of it. I think Peacock Curl is wonderful stuff for flies. It's a fish attractant. So I'm just going to tie a clump of this right to the top of the hook shank. Secure that down. Now I'm going to grab the other half of that rubber leg that we cut, and I'm going to do the same thing on the Peacock Curl. I'm going to bring to one side and then bring the other side over. Now we're going to create a dubbing loop. my dubbing loop twister here. We're using a dubbing that I developed for carp fishing. It's called Cohen's Carp Dub. This happens to be the Blaze Orange. Grab a couple of little pinches of this, and I'm going to put this in between my dubbing loop. Let's grab a little bit more. And we're going to twist that up real well. I'm going to grab a dubbing brush, and I'm just going to brush out all this so that those rubber legs really stick out of the dubbing loop. Now we're going to build a pretty healthy clump of dubbing here, all the way up and over the eyes. Just want to really fill that up. And then we're going to tie off the excess. Trim that. I'm just going to hold my dubbing back and start to form a little bit of a thread head so that we can keep that nice and clean. I'm going to grab all of my Peacock Curl. We're going to fold this over the top of all that dubbing. Secure it down. I'm just going to pull on it just a little bit to make sure that it's nice and tight. And now I'm going to fold it back over and bring my thread just in front of it to make sure that it's really secure. We trim off all the excess. And we're going to build a nice thread head. Whip finish. A little bit of head cement on that. And that's it. The CarpNado. If you want it extra buggy, you could take your brush and really brush that dubbing out. That's what it's meant for, to really get wispy and kind of crazy looking. This stuff breathes in the water, which is really important for carp. Subtle movement is essential in carp flies. And that's it.